Very good morning, students. Today in this online class, Mr. Ikedas, is going to teach you the Vedic civilization. We have already discussed in our earlier class the Harappan civilization. So, dear friend, you know this Vedic civilization, the top civilization of world, and after the Harappan civilization, that predominantly, dominate the whole Indian continents. The Here I would like to say, generally, dear friend, a civilization may disintegrate, but it does not completely die. The Aryans who succeeded the Indus Valley people dominate the scene, gave shape to a civilization which is considered predominantly the Aryans in its features. Scholars have drawn attention to the continuity of historical tradition recorded in the Puranas, right from the Mohenjo-daro era to the Great War of Kurukshetra. So, what is more important, dear friend, still they have detected in the later Indian civilization dominated by the Aryans. So, the Aryans were the true builders of the Vedic civilizations. The Aryans. What do you mean? These Aryans and non-Aryans. The Aryans, particularly those peoples who settle in India in the northern part, and at that time, the original inhabitants, we can say, they are the Dravidians. They settle in the southern part. The here in this Vedic civilization, we will discuss the early Vedic periods. Early Vedic periods. How this early phase dominate the history of India as well as world to a great extent. The dear friend, first in these sections I would like to share with you the geographical extension of Vedic civilization. The geographical extension of Vedic civilization. The here the Aryans, they, if you go to the geographical extension, definitely we can say that the geographical horizons of the Rig Vedic hymns gives us an idea that the initial Aryan settlements in India seem to have been the Punjab and Delhi regions. Here the most frequently mentioned rivers, look at the map here, are the Sindhu or Indus, then Saraswati, modern Saraswati, now lost in the Rajasthan deserts. Then the another one is the Disdavati, that is Ghagra rivers, and the five streams which collectively gave their name to the Punjab. Okay, these five rivers are Satadri, that is Sutlej, Bipasa, that is Bees, Parusini, that is Ravi, Asikini, that is Chenab, and Bista, that is Jhelum. The geographical knowledge of the early Aryans didn't extend beyond Yamuna, which is mentioned in Rig Vedic periods. So, my dear friends, the many historians they argue that the Aryans they migrated from the Central Asias. They are the foreigners, and they settle in India first in this Saptasindhi regions. But here I would like to share with this early phase of these periods, Vedic periods. The Vedic civilization is named after the Vedas, which is earliest specimens of Indo-European language and the chief sources of information on the history of these periods. The Vedic civilization furnished along the river Saraswati in regions that now consist of modern Indian states of Haryana and Punjab. Later they moved into the Indo-Gangetic plains. By 6th century BC, the Aryans they occupy the whole of North India, which was referred to as Aryavarta. These periods between 1500 BC to 600 BC is divided into early Vedic periods, that is Rig Vedic periods, the oldest one, 1500 BC to 1000 BC, and the later Vedic period, that is 1000 BC to 600 BC. The this Vedic civilization, the real founders, the founders of these periods were the Aryans. The around 1500 BC, speakers of Indo-European language gradually infiltrate the Indian subcontinent. These people refer to themselves as Arya, as historians do not have much archaeological evidence for this era. They rely on the sacred book of Haman's religious song or poems composed by these people. These sacred books are known as Veda, hence these periods will refer to the Vedic civilizations. Again, in this context, I would like to discuss with you people that the Indians, English, Germans, and Spanish, French, and Persians pride themselves to be the true descendants of the Aryans. Just I would like to give the one examples that Hitler's, the great mighty Hitler's, he always, proudly, said himself as the descendants of the Aryans. These Aryans, they came to India during the second millennium BC. This age is called as the Vedic age. So now a question arises in our minds. The original home of the Aryans, I have told you, they are the foreigners. They, came from the other parts of India. Some of them are the historians, they think that they are original inhabitants of India. And some historians, they regarded as the invaders who destroy the superior civilization of the original inhabitants, that is, you can say the Dravidians, whom they drove beyond the Vindhyas area. They might have been forced to migrate due to the shortage of foods and fodder to seek the settlement in other lands. Many historians have given different type of opinions. Aryans who came to India are called Indo-Aryans. Again, historians agree that the original home of the Aryans was in Central Asia, in regions around the Caspian Sea. They first settled in Punjab, founded their first settlements on the banks of river Indus, Sindhu, and Saraswati. I have already told you earlier, when I described the extension of this physical maps of these Vedic civilizations. The spreads of Aryan in India, how they, settled and spreaded their empires, their civilization. While driving the Dasyus means here Dravidians, these black peoples, beyond the Vindhyas, thus gained the occupation of more and more lands in the eastern and northern parts of the country. They renamed it as Aryavarta. And then they settled in India and composed the Veda, the top literatures, the topmost literature of the world. They composed, the Aryans, they composed this great literature. These Vedas, the word Veda, that is originates from the Sanskrit root Vid, which means know, which means knowledge. The Vid, from Vids, the Veda, literally that comes, and which means knowledge. The Vedas are the most, celebrated positions of the Indian civilization, reflect the growth and development of human thought, picture of transformation of a Prakrit man into a Sanskrit man. These Vedas and these Aryans, these peoples, they originated this Sanskrits and developed this, Sanskrit in India and all over world. What are the different type of Vedas they compose? The first one, that is Rig Veda, the most ancient and older form. Then second one is Ayurvedas. Then third one is Sam Veda. Fourth one is Atharva Vedas. So the Rig Veda, this is one of the oldest of these Vedas. The Rig Veda is the oldest of all the Vedas, composed of 10,552 mantras, and the Purohita of these Vedas, I means the knower, the those who I means recited the mantras of these Vedas are known as Ritvik, and these Vedas contain knowledge of science, matter of universe like sun, moon, and air. Samveda. This is the second Vedas that has 1875 mantras. The knower of this Vedas is known as Udgata. Knowers means here the those who recited that the Pandit we can say of that Veda is known as Udgata. And this Vedas gives knowledge how to worship gods. Even details of yoga philosophy is included in these Vedas. Then jump to the Yajur Vedas. That was the smallest of all four Vedas. The knower of this Vedas is known as Adhavaryu. Adhavaryu. This Vedas gives knowledge of all the deeds and duties to be performed by men or women, students, leaders, king, agriculturist, etc. The Atharva Veda, that is special place in the field of philosophy and spiritualism. Knower of these Vedas is known as Brahma, and it has 760 hymns. About 160 of the hymns are in common with the Rig Veda. The details of medical science and of the medicine that is mentioned in this Veda, it also contains mantra used in marriage, death, rituals, as well as those for kingships. Then another text, that is Brahman text. They are composed to provide guidance on using Vedic mantra in different yajnas and rituals. Early Vedas, we are talking about early Vedic periods, and this Brahmana also one of the early Vedic texts. Each Veda has independent text called Brahmanas. Then another one is Aranyaka. Aranyakas consist of the reflection or thought that expressed after meditating with deep concentration in forest or the wilderness. The Aranyakas are concerned with accurate performance of yajna rites. Then jump to the Upanishads. The term Upanishads indicates knowledge acquired by sitting at the feet of the teachers. Human beings have always wonders about events like life and death. It is not easy to find answer to them, and from the Upanishads you will get answer. The Upanishads discuss such serious, profound issues of lives. The four Vedas and Brahmans, Aranyaka and Upanishads were composed over a period of 1500 years. So my dear friend, these Vedas and Puranas, Mahabharata, Ramayanas and other texts give information, know about the early Vedic lives, early Vedic periods. Then we'll discuss the social lives of the early Vedic periods. Each village, that is, consists of many joint families. The families called Griha or Kula, that was the pivot of the Rig Vedic society, the most important concept of Rig Vedic society. As the semi-nomads Aryan settled in northwest and Punjab Valley, they developed a healthy family life in which marriage was considered sacred and indissoluble. Monogamy was the normal practice, through instances of polygamy were not, unknown. The society was composed of number of tribes, among whom the intertribal conflicts were features of frequent occurrence. Women were given important status in the society. They were given educations. The scholars like Gargi, Maitri, they composed Rig Vedic hymns. Then the lady counterparts, the wife important in religious ceremonies, particularly in Rig Vedic periods, the early Vedic periods. The position of women were very high. They were, respected by their male counterpart. Particularly in the marriage systems, they were given freedom to choose their husbands. No doubt, the swambaras were held. From that on, we can say that how the women's they were respected in that periods. No child marriage were there, particularly in early Vedic periods. Again, the widows were allowed to remarry in the society. The society was the patriarchal society. Kulapas or the Grihapati means the head of the families. They ate the simple and nutritious foods: wheat, barley, maize, vegetables, fruits, milks products. They, ate all these products, and fond of honey and intoxicating drinks. Soma and Sura also, prevailed in that times. They used, particularly in early Vedic periods, meat eaten occasionally. And if you go to their dress code, dress system, the dress in two garments, unstitched piece of cloth like dhoti, lungi, lower garments tied around the waist, and light shawl upper garments, turban like the hideous ornaments of gold, silver, precious stones. They were all that. The my dear friend, here earlier I have told you that the women got important position in that periods. If you go to the society or the different type of Varna system, the class were on the basis of their occupations. The Brahmans, the caste systems divided into four. That is not caste system, we can say that is Varna system. Class conversions were allowed at that periods. The Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Brahmans, they perform the worship or education and religions works. The Kshatriyas, they are warrior groups, they protect tribes. Vaishya, the middle class like this, the merchants, the commercial groups provides goods and foods to all that groups. And Sudras, particularly the manual workers, they were the servant of all that groups. But according to their occupation, their class were divided in that periods. Then what are the recreation of that periods, early Vedic periods? The outdoor activities, chariot racings, hunting. They enjoy music and dance. The indoor activities were dance or gamblings. And if you go to the religions, definitely you will get one supreme powers, the god force of natures. They worship the natures: Indra, Agni, Surya, Varuna, Vayu, Soma, Prithvi, Usha. They were the worshipper of natures. But in the later Vedic periods, the image worship system, populars in that periods. If you go to the political organizations, definitely, different type of many tribes were there, the Janas that led by Rajanas. From the evidence of Rig Vedic texts, it appears that monarchical systems were prevalent in that periods. The Rajans, the institution of monarch or the monarchy, probably owe its origins to military necessity and was said to be justified on grounds of divine sanction. As a rule, kingship was hereditary in that periods. Each jana, many villages, gramas. Then each gramas, many families, leaders of each grama was gramini, village headmans. The main income was derived from the booties collected in war and voluntary gifts by the people. The Senani, the Gramani and the Purohita were important members of the royal, entourage. While the Senani and Gramani looked after the army and served the village headmen respectively, the Purohita occupy a distinctive role in that periods. The Rajana, I have already told, he was the head of that states. Purohita, I have already told you about the Purohitas. He also a special position. Senani, commander in chiefs. Rajana, no absolute power. People had say. There are two, organization. One is Sabha and Samiti, a small assembly that is members of tribes advised and guided the king. Sometimes some decisions were taken by or with the advice of these groups, these members, the kings. Take decisions or took decisions. Then Samiti, the largest assembly, opinion on important matters given by any members. Women also took part in this early Vedic periods. Then if you go to the economic lives, definitely a pastoral lives they maintains. A pastoral lives maintained. The economic life of the Rig Vedic Aryans, unlike that of Indus Valley people, that was a distinctive rurals. If you go to the Harappan periods, definitely there's a urban, economic pattern of that periods. But particularly the Vedic period is the rurals base, society. The village with its pastoral and agricultural land form the unit of Rig Vedic positions of great importance. Values of communities of lands were determined in terms of cattle. Rig Vedic passages were replete with the wishful prayers for the increase of their numbers, and agriculture was the main occupations. Farmers, they produce different, different types of farming activities. So the Rig Vedic age also saw the cultivation of industrial arts to some extent. The bronze, smiths acquired a skill which was admitted as higher than the attainment by their Indus Valley predecessors. Generally, trade and industry also flourished in those days. Most of the trade in Rig Vedic day was in the hands of Panis. They carried in on trade both by land and sea. Trade mainly consisted of barter system. Barter system was the top system that was maintained in that periods. That was the economic system of that periods. On the whole, having natural facilities for agriculture and cattle breedings, the Aryan enjoy a prosperous economic life. So, my dear friend, have a nice day. Hope today you have enjoyed.